I said this before when you were on. I've had an evolution on you. I remember being on the chairlift with a friend of mine in December of 2021, I think it was, and she was reading your book. And anyway, it was a few months before I interviewed you. And I said, you should be careful because, you sort of, if you take in the wrong information, then you're saying the wrong thing to everybody. And she was like, well, he has some really interesting things to say. You might want to look at it. So I did. Started looking at your book, started reading it, started looking up the sources that you cited in support. Then went to my team and said, let's check his sources. Let's see what other people say about his sources. Is he citing the right sources? And it turned into this long interview we did. And your claims checked out. The most controversial stuff that you get labeled a kook for saying, checked out time after time after time. And this is not a full endorsement of everything you've ever said, but my takeaway was this guy has been unfairly maligned by people who are so pro-vaccine that they just needed to silence him. So it works to the point where there's a fair amount of people who say like, oh, he's a kook. My friends at National Review, we pulled it just not to insult you, but Jim Garrity, who I really like, said, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And there's similar. But I'll bet you he hasn't done half the work my team and I have to actually see whether that's true. So this censorship actually does have a negative effect on you.
Yeah. I mean, what I say to people is show me where I'm wrong. Just show me the facts because, I'm susceptible to change. If somebody shows me where I'm wrong, I'm not going to stay on an opinion that is based upon a bad factual foundation. I'm accused constantly of promoting misinformation, but nobody actually is able to show me a single factual assertion that I've made that is wrong. And I'm sure there are some out there. We're very, very careful on social media. I probably have the most robust in-house fact-checking operation right now in the media. We have 350 PhD scientists, MD physicians on an advisory board that looks at the things that I post. None of them would stay with me if I was promoting misinformation, regularly or even occasionally. But if I do it, my reaction is, and I say this at the beginning of my book, show me if there's a fact in this book that you disagree with, and show me a counterfact, and we will change it. We've been through, I think, 12 or 15 editions of that book. And if somebody sends a letter to us and says, I spotted something on page 212 that is not true or that's challengeable, we'll just change it.
Well, here's what I think is happening instead. Here's what they're deciding just to shut you up.
I make occasionally, because I tweet a lot now. So the other day I made a tweet that said that there was Aegis missile systems in Ukraine. I was wrong about that. They were in Romania and Poland. I thought they were in Ukraine. I mistake because I'm tweeting very quickly all the time in response to current events. Sometimes I don't get that kind of robust fact checking. But immediately, the reader said this is wrong, and I went and looked it up, and then I printed an apology and errata, and that would be my response in any case. Where somebody says you're wrong about this, I want to correct the public record.
But no, what's easier is to just say, this is the narrative is, he's a nutcase on vaccines. He's against the MMR vaccine. Everyone knows that's important. We have to stop listening to him, as opposed to doing what you and I did on our 4-hour exchange, where I actually got into what you're actually claiming, what you've actually written, and said this. And we went to your worst critics. We went to the people who can't stand you and said, where's he wrong? And they gave us all their ammo, and we presented you with it, and you responded. That is how people learn. That is how people come to their own conclusion about, oh, he's right, or no, I don't believe it, or what. That's how journalism used to work and is supposed to still work. But instead, we get this from ABC News, which, as you point out, interviewed you and made an obvious cut on the subject of vaccines. And after the exchange that I'm about to show the audience, the anchor comes back on and says, to the effect of, he said a bunch of nonsense on vaccines, which we edited because he's full of it. Here's part of it.
You've said in the past that there is a correlation between vaccines leading to autism. That's totally been debunked.
Wait a minute, who debunked it?
We have not seen any kind of scientific connection from the CDC, the World Health Organization, the National Academy of
Those
Sciences.
organizations are captive agencies, Lindsay.
And so you think they're all in cahoots?
Yeah, they're all captive.
You've discussed the Kennedy family as like any family. There are disagreements.
Right. So she cut out everything that followed. Then she offered a 33-second disclaimer on how wrong you are on vaccines, rebutting claims we didn't get to hear, just whatever you had said and what wound up on the editing room floor, which was longer than the 20-second exchange ABC chose to air.
Yeah, I mean, what I did after that with Lindsay is I laid out the scientific studies, which I cited. I cited the names of the authors of those studies, the in-house studies at CDC, et cetera, that actually confirm that link. And by the way, I didn't go on there saying I'm going to push this, this issue between autism and vaccines. She chose to ask me about it, and along with a kind of propaganda statement, it's completely untrue. It's been debunked. And when I pushed back on that and cited scientific studies supporting it, of which there are hundreds, she left her propaganda in place and cut mine out. And then at the end, gave this very unusual statement saying we had censored him because he was promoting misinformation. And so it was, it ended with a kind of a defamation. But at least she allowed me on. One of the things that you did when you first let me on, it was at a time, Megyn, that nobody was allowing me to speak. I was just a pariah in the media. I was exiled, and it was blanket. It was, wall to wall. I was just not allowed on. And you were one of the first people to have a conversation with me on this show. And you did something very unusual, which is you would interview me, and then you'd play a section of that interview, and then you would play your fact check. And people called me up and said, that's not fair what Megyn's doing, because she's she's after checking you rather than having an argument about you. And I said, what she's doing is the only way that she could allow me on. What she is doing is great. And I want people to do that. I want people to fact check me. People should not believe what I say. And they should not believe what CDC says. They shouldn't believe what the WHO says. In a democracy, you have to do your own research. That is part of the work of living in a democracy. It's part of your civic duty. And as a parent, you need to do that research to protect your children. Everybody needs, don't just listen to your doctor. Don't listen to me. Do your own research. You need to do that to protect your child today. And what you did, Megyn, I said to people who were questioning that, I said, what she's doing is exactly what she needs to do to allow me for the first time to speak. So I was very, very grateful for the way that you handled that. You figured out a way to do that without enduring the kind of, typhoon of criticism and hatred that you have gotten if you had just aired me unedited.
Well, we wanted it to live. We wanted it to live on YouTube and Insta and all platforms that had been censoring you. And it did, and it does to this day. I mean, we've considered it a feat, right? We have 4 hours of RFK Jr. on all the most incendiary stuff, and it hasn't been censored even a little, even one time. And we appreciate it. Some of the stuff we had an actual back and forth on, like this is what somebody says, and some of the stuff I stole the last word with those, this is what his critics are saying about it. But I think people walked away from it really enjoying it, my critics and yours, saying, I learned something, and they saw you in a new light, because all you need to do is talk to you to realize there's much, much more to you and your advocacy and what you're about than this one issue. You're a lifelong environmental lawyer who spent his entire career trying to clean up the rivers and the environment and the ocean from toxic chemicals, which are killing us. I mean, that's something even your critics would admit. So it's the vaccine lane that they've used to try to dismiss you. And there's much, much more to you. And that's one of the reasons I'm glad to see you run. I want to tell you about the amazing extreme altitude wines from the Bonner Private Wine Partnership. These flavors go great with any hearty meal and meat you're going to serve. They are unlike any wine you've ever tasted. Blackberry, leather, smoke, and little dark cherry. The wines are almost impossible to get on your own. The producers deep in the Andes Mountains make limited quantities. I have a great offer for you right now. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, that's BONNER privatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get wine for over 50% off plus free shipping, you'll also get a bonus bottle of small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3. It's a deal that's hard to turn down if you are a wine lover like I am. They've cut out the middleman, so you're not going to pay a big markup. Just visit Bonner, BONNER privatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.